Hello and welcome to our time today. Thank you for joining us. Have you ever felt alone, even though there are people around? Or maybe you just feel alone when you don't want to be alone. You can't bear your own company. I don't know. It happens to a lot of us. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this talk I heard on Sunday last. It was a talk in church, and it was actually on loneliness and isolation. I found it helpful. So I'll just mention that briefly. Also mention some tips and advice from our counselling background, Rachel and I. There's a picture that I'm going to put up now with you can feel like walking in a car park. You can feel so lonely. You come out of a busy building and suddenly you're alone. It can feel very isolating. You've ever felt that way? Or maybe you've been in crowds and you felt lonely, or on a tube train and felt lonely. About when you're in a party. You've been to a party when you've not really wanted to be there, and when people have felt very far away and not interested in you. That can be the loneliest place, can't it? So today we're going to talk a bit more about this. And my name's Colin, and I'm an accredited counsellor, and I work with the Baptist Church in Oxford Street. And every week or so, Rachel and I do these advice videos to help people live a life of hope. Rachel, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hello, everybody. I work as a local counsellor and also a part-time psychology teacher. And we're going to show a picture of a cactus that needs water. And my thought is that, like that cactus, like any plant, we need relationships and we need to feel connected in order to grow and to feel fulfilled, a bit like a plant needs water. Colin, what thoughts do you have on feeling left out and an insider, like an outsider looking in?
Yeah, Rachel, I can remember that sense of being an outsider, lonely. Felt that way quite a lot at school, and also when I was quite a young adult as well. I felt that other people were enjoying friendship and being connected, but there I was on my own, and there was something missing in me. I didn't realise until much later in life that life could be more fuller and complete. I could find that through when someone came to me and told me about Jesus, and that Jesus did talk very much about giving people a life of abundance or a life of fullness. And life living is not just about just getting through and surviving. Eat, drink, work, sleep, get up in the morning, eat, drink, work, sleep. Life needs to be more. There has to be more point than that. Why are we here, and what's the point? And I found it really helpful when I learned that God wants us to have a life of fullness that's full of purpose, of being loved and accepted and having meaning and hope. And I wanted that. I realized when I realized that was something that God wanted for me. I wanted that too. And Jesus, knowing Jesus has made such a difference. And I've not felt so isolated or cut off ever since. Rachel, I understand that you've been reading an article on this topic. Would you like to share a bit from that, please?
Yes, I read an interesting BBC article the other day. I don't know if any of you have seen it, called COVID. Loneliness is a bigger health risk than smoking or obesity. Now, I knew that loneliness was a risk factor for our health, but I had no idea just how risky it could be. I don't know if you're familiar with this idea. According to the chief medical officer of an American medical insurance company, loneliness has the same impact on mortality as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, making it even more dangerous than obesity. Now, I find that pretty mind-blowing. I don't know if you're familiar with that idea. It's not just an issue for older people, because since COVID-19 has struck, many young people have reported lonely, and in fact, more have reported lonely who are young than even older people. So that's quite interesting. Alice Gray, a neuroscientist, highlighted the importance of loneliness in a recent article. And an organisation that represents Welsh GPs expressed the belief that long-term loneliness had a 50%, yes, 50% increased risk of an early death, which seems extraordinary. They believe that social prescribing is a way to counteract this. So the good news is there is a way to sort of fight against it. So instead of offering a prescription for drugs, giving people advice about activities which will help them mix with other people, like, I don't know, joint gardening projects, attending Keep Fit, mixing with others actually boosts our health and immunity. So I think what's critical to know here is the issue of loneliness is more than just a feeling. It's important because it can help, it can impact our health and well-being. I'll hand over to Colin now for some thoughts about it.
Yeah, as already has been said, loneliness is can be a time when others are with us, but it also can be a time when we're alone and we don't want to be alone. We can't cope with our own company, and we feel there's no one to reach out to, no one who will care or understand. And I've got a picture just to illustrate that now. So how can we have a sense of wholeness? How can we have that when we're feeling alone and weak and isolated? On Sunday, Speaker Pete spoke about a psalm, and a psalm is a poem, and there's a whole book of those in the Bible. And he spoke about Psalm 142. And poems like this have been used for generations to help people get in touch with their feelings when they're feeling lost and overwhelmed, or when the world feels against them. A poem like the Psalm can make such a difference to speak to us and to hear what God thinks about us and where He is, but also to express our feelings as a human being back to Him. In this particular Psalm, we find even a king, King David, knows what it's like to feel alone. So wealth and power doesn't make you immune to loneliness. And this in this psalm that the writer cries out, he says, I cry out to God, the Lord, I pour out my complaint before Him and tell Him all my troubles. It can be such a release to be able to talk to someone like this, to be completely open and completely out there with what's happening inside us. It's very rare to be able to do that with a human being, but with God, He knows us anyway. We can be so honest with Him. And that can be a real refreshment to us, and it can be a real release. We also see in this particular psalm is that God knows the way for us. He's got a plan for us, and He's watching over us. So even in the darkest times of life, no matter how we feel, we're not alone. And we can take comfort from the story of Jesus. That like Jesus, he knew, even though He went through terrible times, that the Father was always with Him. And this particular psalm, as many of the psalms do, they echo Jesus' life experience. And one thing to really remember is that people can never be our refuge. Only God can be our refuge. That's one of the big messages that comes through in these psalms. Rachel, I think you have some practical tips for what we can do in these times of loneliness and isolation.
Yeah, there's two gifts I wish I could give you if you're feeling lonely, two presents, if you like. It would be absolutely amazing if we could just magic loneliness away. However, it's not like that, unfortunately, because life isn't like that. But the two presents that I would give would be, one, reaching out to other people. And I've found that this has helped me a lot when I've been feeling lonely. There's a picture of a woman in a crowd, and I don't know if you've ever felt like this, but she feels like she's different from everybody else. She feels she's not connected. She looks around her and feels everybody else is connected, but she isn't. And I felt a bit like this when my spouse left me. Unexpectedly, he was gone from me. And as far as I was concerned, one day I was married and happy, and the next I was abandoned. Slowly, I began to connect with others and kind of build up connections after that, though. And I found it helped for me to take the initiative. I came to the conclusion that unless I took the initiative sometimes, a friend wasn't going to come knocking on my door. You know, nobody was going to kind of send me a friend through the post, if only. Um, it wasn't going to happen. So I decided I better reach out to other people. And I started to reach out and make connections with others whenever I could. Now, the second gift that I would give to anybody feeling lonely today, if this is you, is actually care for other people. Yes, that sounds a very weird thing to say, because you might say, that's very strange, but I need to be cared for. And I get that feeling, and that may well be true. But strange though it sounds, actually looking after somebody else, thinking about someone else's needs and wants, actually helps to break the loneliness cycle. It helps us to connect in a close and a meaningful way to other people because we're thinking about them, and that sort of helps the relationship to blossom. This reminds me of the way God looked after me, even when I felt broken and abandoned, like I could never be fixed again after my ex-husband left. Ways to do this are numerous, and they include volunteering, attending a class, taking up a new hobby with other people, group activities. There's lots of ways that you could do this. And if you're not sure about this and want to message us, do, and maybe we can help you with some suggestions. Colin, what do you think may be some reasons why we feel lonely?
Yeah, Rachel. At this point, I'll come to that in a moment. At this point, I just want to say as well that that we do run these videos, but we're also running some groups, the odd group online, support
Yeah.
groups, for people who are feeling a bit isolated and lonely, or just want to make connections with others. So do watch out for those. I'm going to run another one in July, at some point towards the latter part of July. So watch our Facebook page for that. So following on from what Rachel said, I think another powerful way to feel less lonely is to look back, on our lives, back to our memories, and remember the good things. Remember some of the times that we've been supported and cared for in the past, when people have been good to us, times when we felt safe and protected. These things we can easily forget when we're feeling negative or a bit depressed or isolated in some way. We can get to when we look back, we just see all the bad. So it's really important to do this, to find some nurturing memories and some times when people are around us to make us feel safe and protected. And why do I say this? Because sometimes we do cut ourselves off a lot from others because of past hurts and letdowns. And from some of the counselling training I've done, I can see that feeling an outsider and loneliness can start very on in life, very early on. Perhaps we'd had a difficult time as a child and did not feel the nurture and support that we needed or wanted when we were little. Perhaps we had a difficult time at school and growing up. Perhaps we were bullied or something else made us feel very outside of the group and different in some way. So getting in touch with that little boy or little girl can bring real healing and hope to us. And I also wanted to say that, you need friends and connections, as Rachel said, but the church can be a great way to find that sense of belonging, find those people you can open up to, people you can feel safe with, and a welcome and a warm place is a really, really nice thing to have. So I would encourage you to consider that as well. How about you, Rachel? Have you found faith and people who follow Jesus has helped you at all? Any thoughts on this? Can you please close for us?
In lots of ways. One of the ways is that I found actually creating a mental image of God in my mind, creating a picture of him, helps me feel connected and less lonely if I'm having a lonely day. Sometimes even when I'm seeing other people in that day, I sometimes feel lonely somehow. When I felt lonely in a crowd, I found it helpful to deliberately adopt positive body language, like smiling and standing tall, and also praying for anybody that I notice in the crowd, just mentally in my mind praying. is a way to sort of connect myself to them and to God as well. We hope that you found some of the things that we've shared useful, and we'd love it if you message us. Please feel free to do that. You can message us on our Life of Hope Facebook page or on the web, which is www.lifeofhope, that's all one word, .co.uk. And we look forward to you joining us again in the future.